All right, y'all, welcome to the Mad Rhythms Podcast Network. This is the Either And Podcast, and I'm your host, Brill Barrett. When there's contention and controversy, most people believe the solution has to be either or. I believe the solution lies somewhere in either and. All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Either And Podcast. And joining us today is a very special host, a good friend of mine. We go back, like 4 flat tires on the dump truck. We've been down since forever. Give it up for Mr. DeWitt Fleming.
Yeah, Brother Brill.
No, I'm just messing. Let's do that again. Give it up for Mr. DeWitt Fleming. Brother DeWitt, how you been, man?
Oh, man, I've been blessed. I can't complain, man. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Oh, I've been good, brother. I've been good. I'm one of those people, I enjoy watching the success of my brothers and sisters in the dance. So, you know, the things that you've been on lately have just been, I've been happy. I've been happy to know that I know you and that we know each other from the years of growing up in the dance and the game. But right now, you are touring with A Wonderful World.
Yeah.
So real quick, I just want to give me some details on that.
Okay, so it's a brand new show called A Wonderful World.
Hello, this is Tristan the editor. For some reason, both Brill and DeWitt's mics drop out here, so what Mr. Fleming is trying to say is he's in a show called A Wonderful World, which ran at the Cadillac Palace Theater in downtown Chicago from May 12th through May 29th in 2023. The show is about
the one and only legendary Louis Armstrong. And so we go through his life, and the story is told through the eyes of his 4 wives. And in the show, I play a couple different characters, but my main character I play is Lincoln Perry, a.k.a. Steppin Fetchit. And it's a kind of an integral part of the story as to him showing Louis the ropes and how to make it in Hollywood. So it's a dope scene. Yeah.
It is. And it's funny. So I went to the show on community night, and every time you came out on stage, I was like, oh, here comes the tap number. But it was those other roles you were playing before. So, you know, I'm not trying to give away too much, but we do see you before we hear you.
Right, absolutely.
But when you finally came out as Lincoln Perry, of course, I never knew that a tap dancer had anything to do with kind of schooling a young Louis Armstrong on how to make it in Hollywood, how to develop your gimmick or your thing. But that reminds me that when we study a lot of the old hoofers, they all had their thing.
Yeah.
They all had a thing anyway, so that, you know, it made sense.
Right.
But that he schooled Louis Armstrong like that was cool. Now, so we're gonna get right into it.
Come on, let's go.
Lincoln Perry.
Yeah.
Steppin Fetchit.
That's right.
One of those roles that, so let me preface this by saying we've been talking a lot lately about changing the narrative.
Yes.
Right? Tap, and it's funny, I just saw a clip last night. It's like YouTube knew what I was going to talk about today. So on my timeline, here's this video of Savion from 10 years ago talking about changing the stereotypical ideas that people have about tap dance.
Absolutely.
And so as we go forward, the narrative has been for a lot of us changing what people think tap dance is. And not what it is rhythmically or musically or sonically, but changing what it is stereotypically or image-driven wise.
Right.
And so, and I told you this when I first knew that you were playing Steppin Fetchit, I was like, oh, this brother is brilliant, and this is where we're going to put him on. Like, I had all those thoughts.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad that I saw it.
Yeah.
Because in it, without giving away too much, but I mean, like you say, we knew things in our community about him historically. You break down how he used the misnomers, the negative imagery, all the stereotypical stuff they thought to his advantage in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So if you will, just elaborate a bit on the Steppin Fetchit, the character, and then Lincoln Perry, the man who created the character.
Absolutely. Steppin Fetchit, the character, is... The funny thing is a lot of people have misconceptions about what that character is to begin with. They don't see the ingenuity and the architect of what he was doing. And when I say we, I mean we nowadays, in the past, let's say 30, 40, 50, even 50 years. this character was a it was a what do you call it? He was fooling everybody. And so he was fooling everybody in real life, Lincoln Perry, but he even created a character that was fooling people, fooling his counterparts, his other sing partners, you know? So the idea was, they already think I'm dumb, I'm slow, I'm stupid, you know? So I'm going to give them what they think I am. And when they ask me to do something, or I'm supposed to be serving them, they end up serving me. So, you know, you'll see him and they're like, well, where is this? I told you to get this. And he'll be like, well, I don't know. Or maybe he'll go and get something completely different, you know? And then they'll be like, no, it's not that. You know, forget it. I'll get it. This is what I wanted to do. And then they end up doing everything that they asked him to do, you know? And so, you know, black folks at the time thought it was hilarious because they understood the dynamic and what he was doing. They understood that he was taking this stereotype and turning it on his head and making them look stupid. So you saying how stupid I am, but look at you.
You just did all the work I'm supposed to be doing, and you don't even realize.
Right, exactly. So he, you know, was a genius. And then on top of that, just what he created in the characters, rhythmic wise, because you know, at first, I didn't know he was a tap dancer.
Right. Neither did I. Full disclosure.
Yeah.
Everybody like, bro, know his history. I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know either. And I was just fascinating hearing, you know, his story about his father being a tap dancer and being a dancer in vaudeville, you know? And so hearing just these stories of him, how he was a hoofer and how he was the world's best buck dancer. Yeah. And the shows he was on, they would have a sign that said $10,000 prize to anyone that could beat Rostas, the world's greatest buck dancer. You know, and it's just crazy to hear stuff like that and hear about, you know, people trying to challenge him and him, you know, winning these contests. And, you know, so it's amazing. But he took that upbringing of vaudeville and the medicine shows and carnivals and stuff like that he performed at, and he transferred it to film so brilliantly because he took the rhythm of it. I mean, first he started in silent films, so he knew that in those performances rhythm was a big part of it. In comedy there's rhythm, in tap there's rhythm. Absolutely. You know, and so he took that in the silent films and used his rhythm of his body language, of his eyes, of his reactions, of his turns, no matter how slow, how small. But he knew that, you know, that rhythm is something that people understand. Right. It's something that people can connect with, you know, no matter who you are. You know, if you say something and I turn very slowly and look at you, it's very different than if you say something and I turn quick. Yeah. You know, or if I say something and, you know, my face is very just neutral or my eyes are almost closed, it means something different than if you say something and I have this big look on my face. Right. So he used all this very brilliantly with rhythm and the way he responded and acted on film on the silent films. And it was just like so captivating because he had such control of it.
Before you go any further, you touched on something that I just thought about in connection when so lately in the classes I've been teaching lately, we've been talking about, I always make my students do homework. Yeah. So a lot of times first class and we talk about Master Juba. And because a lot of them know Bojangles, then they kind of they're ready for Bojangles. But I've been lately teaching them about King Rostas Brown. Yeah. So it's funny that you said Lincoln Perry also on those when he would do the competitions, the signs would say, you know, compete against Rostas. Yeah. And then I always say, you know, King Rostas Brown was just one of many. Rostas was a name that was used. It was a character that many people played. Exactly. Let's put it that way. Exactly. So it's cool to know that even I've been talking about King Rostas Brown, but Lincoln Perry also played a Rostas in his career as a dancer. Absolutely. That was Rostas toothpaste. That was Rostas. Man, it's crazy. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. I just the nuggets of wisdom that pop out is like, oh yeah, there's a connection there. Right. So, but so silent films using rhythm. What's next?
Next, you know, he was just the producers. I fell in love with Lincoln Perry because he was so captivating. You know. And everybody loved him, and he was the person that would go the extra mile. He was the person that never ever was out of character. The only time he probably was out of character was when he was writing for the Chicago Defender, or when he was around his other black friends, or when he was in his penthouse, in Hollywood with his servants, or his 5 or 6 luxury cars driven by his servants, and it was crazy, man. And it's fascinating because he never set limits for himself. He was it's not about me not getting something. It's like, okay, how do I overcome these obstacles to get what I want? So he never had that vision or outlook of I can never do that, or I can never be that because of my skin, because of who I am, because of the way I look. He thought, okay, let me figure this out. There's a way to do it. I'm going to be rich and famous. I'm going to have everything the white actors are having. I'm going to have the cars. I'm going to have the nice clothes, and I'm going to be brilliant, and everybody's going to love me. How do I do it? And he figured it out. And it's unfortunate because we don't know the brilliance that lives on in what we do today that came from him. A lot of the comedy you see now and that you've seen over the years, is accredited to him. The way he started things, the way he created this character that created so much I'm trying to think of a line he used to say, and I can't think of it now. But the whole idea of the what is it? The person that seems to be dumb.
Oh, like playing the fool,
playing
or
the fool.
Yeah.
And his idea was that's a human trait. That's not a black trait.
Right.
That's a human trait. And the idea of using rhythm of language, and that idea of mumbling and certain words coming out that and so it as an audience member, it makes you create a picture. So if I just go potato, hat, it makes you create a picture. And that whole style of comedy of having these words pop out, and the mumbling. He created that.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because right off the bat, 2 things pop into my mind. There's a jazz standard called Mumbles. Who's the girl? The whole song is him mumbling. Clark Terry.
Yeah.
And so that popped into my mind. But check this out. I was just watching Saturday Night Live this past weekend.
Yeah.
They had Bad Bunny on, who's a Puerto Rican hip hop reggaeton artist.
Right.
But he doesn't really speak English. So there was a lot more Spanish in the skets in the sketches. But one of them they did, it was him and what's the actor that was in that The Last of Us. He was with the little girl through the zombies and all that. But anyway, he's a Latinx actor as well. So the 2 of them did a skit where they kept talking in Spanish, but the other people at the table didn't speak Spanish. And instead of putting the subtitles on the screen, we had to try to figure it out. So they would just say, oh, no, flat butt. And it was the same concept. Of just making those certain words stand out and pop.
Right.
Helped us figure out the whole conversation.
Yeah.
Without subtitles, without speaking Spanish. Absolutely. And I was like, that's genius. And then you come in today and we talking right about that's the fact that Lincoln Perry started that, created that.
He started that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. You go back and look at I Love Lucy and those skits and how, all that stuff was done. That's him. Amos and Andy came after him. All that stuff, just even up to Cat Williams and people we see today. I mean, people that we know today. And if you speak to them, they'll say, because they've done their research, I was listening to Lincoln Perry's, he's got an album.
Okay.
He's got a comedy album. It's hilarious, it's hilarious.
Oh, I need to hear that. I didn't know. And
most people think that, black people kicked him out of Hollywood because, of the stereotype and they were, ashamed and that he was creating a bad image for black people.
Right.
And that's It's totally untrue.
Interesting.
It's very so when they first stopped hiring him in Hollywood, it was for a few different reasons, but one of the major reasons is because they kept saying he was difficult to work with.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why they were saying he was difficult to work with is because he wouldn't do certain things that they wanted him to do. There was a movie, I can't remember the name of it, but they wanted him to insinuate that he raped one of the other white co-stars or actresses. And he flat out refused. He said no. He said, I know what that means for black people. I know Birth of the Nation and how that affected black people ever since that. And I won't do that. Why don't we do this? And then now, he's being difficult. He won't do what we want him to do.
Right.
And there was many instances where he would not play these negative stereotypes that were so-called specific to black people. And black people understood that because they said, okay, no, the character he's playing, he's being clever. He's fooling them. And also it's a human trait that he's doing. It's not specific to black people.
Right.
If they want to choose to say that it's specific to black people, then that's on them. But we know, no, that's a human trait because I know white people that do the same stuff. Right. And
Jerry Lewis, famous
exactly.
for the bumbling idiot.
Exactly. And where did he get that from?
Exactly.
So it was a choice, and so most is a misconception. Now, once he did fall from, grace as far as with those producers, the NAACP did step in with their own, agendas. To try to create more reputable characters. But at that time, Steppin Fetchit they had already tried to push him out because, one, he was getting paid top dollar. Right. Everybody loved him. And then also he wouldn't do what they wanted him to do.
Which made him dangerous.
Yep. He was writing his own scenes, He was coming up with his own stuff and they had to pay him for it. So a lot of people don't know that, that it wasn't, black people saying, no, we don't want Lincoln Perry because black people love Lincoln Perry. They were the majority of his audience at that time. And so, it's interesting when people say that because I say, oh, okay, well, where do you think Sleep and Eat came from? That came after. Where do you think Amos and Andy and there's another one. There's another character. I said all those people were put in Hollywood to replace Steppin Fetchit. So,
with less control.
With less control,
less cleverness.
There was no cleverness. There was no. The vision wasn't the same. They were just mimicking what he was doing on the surface.
Yeah.
It didn't have that complexity.
That makes sense.
Of character, and so that's when people say, "Oh, well, yeah, they had to get Lincoln Perry out." Like, no, they replaced him with somebody else. So, the real reason why he left is not what you think it is. So it's it's really interesting when you look at that and look at what he did,
Well, and that just makes me think of, so after the show that I went to, Community Night, there was a talk back afterwards, and you and several of the other cast members talked about things, and something you said, and I put it on social media. It was like, do your research.
Do your research.
Because, that's something I've been talking and preaching and teaching for a long time anyway.
Right.
And I tell my story of having no respect for Bojangles because all I knew was the caricature that we saw and that was portrayed. And again, I grew up, my mother's a Black Panther. I grew up loving Public Enemy.
Yeah.
I grew up, so all of the reasons that black people kind of strayed away from the stereotypical aspects of the way tap was presented, I internalized that.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, when somebody mentioned Bojangles, I got mad. I had attitude. Don't you dare.
Absolutely.
I am not that. I don't. And then it wasn't until Gregory did the Bojangles movie, which is funny. We watched that recently because we watch it all the time. It's not even the greatest shot movie or the greatest, as I'm older, I'm like, oh, but at the time that I first saw it, I'm like,
absolutely.
Yo, Bojangles was dope, man.
Yeah.
Like the things that he did, same thing as Lincoln Perry in terms of, creating a caricature that played well on TV, but also fighting against the system off TV, off screen, the two-colored rule in vaudeville, the blackface rule, like all of that stuff. When I learned that, I was like, oh, That's sacrifice.
Yeah.
To be out here smiling and but be in the back in tears because you fighting this fight. And so do the research.
Absolutely.
I reiterate that because doing the research about Bojangles, and that's for tap history as a whole.
Yeah.
So, speaking of that, I want to divert a little bit.
Well,
Just
before
to
you divert, the funny thing is
ahead.
one of the people that Hollywood got to replace Steppin' Fetchit was Bill Bojangles Robinson.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
See?
because Steppin' Fetchit did a movie with Shirley Temple before.
I did not know that. Look at that.
And on that transition of them trying to get him out, they brought Bill Bojangles Robinson in because he was creating so much wave and tension over in New York. So that's just a little fun snippet.
Okay. And the dots connect even more so.
Yeah.
But, and that just, so I want to move a little bit just into you as a tap dancer. Now, you and I are of the same generation. So we look up to all of those that came before us, including the Lincoln Perrys, including the Bojangles, and many others, the Harriet Browns, that like we look up to them. And I would like to think that all of us in our looking up to them learned by doing research, and if we had the opportunity to actually meet them, hearing stories from their mouths and them tell you what their motivation and all that was. So there's a line between what people consider hoofing to be and what people consider Broadway tap to be.
Oh, I hate it.
And now that line has been wholly blurred by yourself, by our brother Jerry Grimes, by Ayodele Cassell, and even by Savion with Noise Funk. But then you can go Gregory with Black and Blue. Like we've been blurring the line, but I just think it's more than just one show. Now it's 2 or 3 shows.
Right.
Great growth. But we're always like Tap was always, I think, meant to be on Broadway, just like it was meant to be everywhere it is, because it's such a personal but yet public display of your emotions, affections, rhythms, musicality, all of that. So I don't know, how did you make that jump DeWitt the Hoofer, DeWitt the Broadway musical man? What's the difference? None, absolutely
none. The only difference is which I think every performer has and every artist has, is you adjust to the audience that you're performing for. You don't adjust yourself, you just adjust the way you present whatever you're presenting. But it still comes from the same place. It still comes from the same feeling and the same intention. For example, if I'm performing in front of a tap audience, right? And I do the shim sham, right? I might put some extra sounds in there, do a couple, fun things to jazz it up. Right. If I do that same shim sham in front of an audience that's not tap dancers or maybe a Broadway style audience, I'll do that same shim sham, but I might add stuff that they might be more familiar with. Some arms, a little bit more presentation, or with the way I move and do certain things, and I maybe won't add as many sounds or different things that I might do for the tap. So it doesn't I don't change what I do. I just change how I present it.
Okay.
And I learned this a long time ago. It's just like Jared and I, we were, tight.
Oh yeah.
And when we had our Broadway Underground, we learned a lot from that. And the biggest thing we learned was that we can't bring in people into our community and have them really welcome them and appreciate and want to spread the word about tap by shoving it down their face. So we had to figure out a way to bring them in with the dance, but couple it with something that they feel already comfortable with, or or something that they already enjoy. Matt Rhythms, you all do a great job at that because you take contemporary music, or you take a social subject or something that people are already connected to and already have a feeling about, and then you bring them in with that and then connect it with the tap, and then now it's just like it's a full experience of what they were expecting, what they weren't expecting. Now they love something new. So it's that same concept that you're doing here. And, so your art doesn't change, it just changes the way you present it and how you welcome people into it.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. And I also think when people are making the distinction between I'll just say rhythm tap. I hate that phrase too. So the same way you reacted when I say Broadway tap, I hear rhythm tap. I'll be like, all tap is rhythm.
Yeah,
if it ain't rhythm, it ain't tap.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But for the sake of this conversation, when people make the differentiation between rhythm tap and Broadway tap, like I'm in classes all the time demonstrating like, well, I mean, if I do all this on my toes, it's still rhythm. It's still this. But if I drop down, I've always said Broadway is basically simplified versions of what we do as hoofers because the feet are so intricate. The rhythms are so intricate. Yeah. So as soon as you talk about simplifying so that they understand, or at least so that they want to understand, right. Bring them in, and then you can go. Because I mean, and the funny thing, I saw that in the show. Yeah. Like you hit a little this, a little bop. And everybody's getting in. I'm like, oh. And then, like you said, you back up off of it. Yeah. I literally physically backed up. Right. You back up off of it and then hit them with a little bit more later. Right. And that creates. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate that a lot of us who were considered this type of tap dancer are now over here showing that tap dance is tap dance. Yeah, absolutely. It's all in what you do with it and how you do it.
Yeah. And, I had to really talk to, because it's hard in musicals because you can't get you don't get the huffers, and it's because
a lot of us don't sing.
Yeah, it's
a lot of us don't. There's the pros and cons of being dedicated to one specific thing. Right. Which Broadway, if you grow up wanting to be on Broadway, you grow up being told you got to do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the thing is, I think there's a place for everybody, and that's why when I was the other day when I was here, I was saying Broadway is one medium. It's not the medium; it's one medium. Yeah. And it just so happened that I came up in theater. And so that's a medium that I'm familiar with. Okay. And my love for the dance, didn't come from that medium. But I want to figure out how to marry the two because I know this medium has so many outlets for the dance. Yeah. And it could push it further, and so I always was like, how do I mix the two? And the challenge, especially being a choreographer, is you have to figure out how to convince the people on this side, the tap dancers, that what the value is in doing this, and it doesn't define who you are. It's just a certain avenue to help spread the love of tap. It doesn't define you at all. It's just another way to spread it out. And then I have to convince the people on this side, the Broadway people, how valuable this is and how Broadway wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for this. And so what happens is I end up having to work with people, like I said, who aren't hoofers, but at least they appreciate it, they understand it. And so I can't do the stuff I want to do, really choreograph stuff that's a little more difficult. But the exciting part is that I end up bringing so many more people into the dance, and now they want to learn, and I show them because they already come afraid, like, oh, DeWitt's this hoofer, he's going to do some crazy choreography that I can't do. Right. That's always the assumption.
The preconceived, yeah.
Right. And then I say, well, no, rhythm, like you said, rhythm is basis of all of this. Yeah. And so if I can get you to understand rhythm, I don't have to give you a bunch of steps. And so that can be your, training wheels into learning more vocabulary and steps. And then also at the same time, I can bring the audience in, through you. Now you're excited. Now they're excited about tap. Now, we're actually going to go see a tap show, not a musical. We're going to go see a tap show. And then it's going to be like, oh, wow, So, I mean, that's kind of how my mind thinks. It's just like, I don't have to give them everything. I just have to give them enough to be interested so they go see Mad Rhythms, you know? So they go see tap shows and other things, and they're like, oh, yeah, they had tap in this show, and it was great.
Yeah.
You know, and just open the door so they can just come in. You know?
And that's how we build each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know Vanessa's off camera, but Vanessa, who's our producer, also is a tap dancer, also studies, takes class with me. And Vanessa would always say, it's not how much you know, but it's how well you... Yeah. It's how well you execute, work with, what you know.
Absolutely.
So that's, I mean, I'm preaching that as well. A lot of people think I'll be good, and it's funny. Ted Levy said this a long time ago. He's like, everybody always thinks when I get fast, I'll be good. And he's like, no, you'll just be fast.
Right.
You know, when I learn all these steps, then I'm good.
Right.
You know, now you just know a lot of steps.
Right.
Being good is how you work, how you mold it into whatever it is, expression, song. So
absolutely.
So yeah, that's dope, man.
Yeah.
Huh?
But you teach that too.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I got it from those that came before me, and so to know that you're on your platform sharing it that same way, like I'm gonna get you hooked for
That's it.
for the lack of a better connection.
Right,
I'm gonna get you hooked, and then once you hooked, you'll find your own path through it.
Yeah, and I think slowly but surely it will happen. You know, you'll start to see more really in depth tap. You know, and more intricate and as intricate and professional as, you know, the jazz dance or whatever they do. You know, just like everybody got to do a double pirouette on Broadway.
Right.
Now, you know, everybody going to have to do some, you know, triple wings and triple pullbacks or whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah.
So, we getting there.
Yeah. Well, and I think with this, it's interesting, this new generation, a lot of them sing, a lot of them act, a lot of them are now picking up and saying, okay, I think growth means you have to learn from the pluses and the negatives of the people before you.
Yep.
So if a lot of us came up, our generation, hitting the wood hard, but not really singing or not really acting, then Broadway wasn't really a goal for us.
Right.
So a lot of us just didn't reach for that. But in terms, then Broadway didn't have a lot of that representation.
Yeah.
So now you change it. The new generation's like, well, we want to be on Broadway. And so now they're coming up hitting like we all been hitting, but also taking voice, also taking those acting lessons, musical theater. Like right now, I love like Jared, his role in Funny Girl is now being played by Isaiah Harris, who's one of our babies here.
I love Isaiah.
One of our babies who, you know, Isaiah sings and did it all. He used to sit around Mad Rhythms rehearsal singing. Everybody on break, Isaiah's singing. Or he grabs somebody and they go in another room and they filming, you know, IG videos of them singing. And so I just like to see that. I feel like it's the same way how when we talk about a lot of the women in the dance, they had to wear high heel tap shoes for one generation.
Right.
So the next generation was anti-high heels.
Right.
The next generation is like, we hitting just like the men are, so we wearing flats. But then the next generation was like, well, it's our choice.
Yeah.
I can hit in character taps. I can hit in, you know, the Oxfords. I can hit in whatever.
Yeah.
I'm still going to hit.
Right.
And so I think that's the plus where we are right now with the dance is people are coming up like, if I want to hit that venue or that medium or that any of that, then I need to do what I need to do to get there.
Absolutely. and you know, it's a sacrifice, you know. I don't know any of the older hoofers that didn't sing.
That's true.
All of them sang, all of them act, you know, and it was just because of the time, you know, that's what you had to do.
Yep.
Now we're fortunate to, you know, be able to have work in different avenues without having to do that. But then it's like, you know, Sly used to say this, you know, I see what the dance is doing for you, but what are you doing for the dance, you know? And it's just like you get to a point where it's not about you anymore, and you see the bigger picture, and it's just like, I want this out there.
Yeah.
And the more you make it not about you, the more it actually becomes about you in a weird way. It comes back around.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, no.
Yeah, and so the sacrifice might be learning a new skill you might not be comfortable with or something like that. Not so you can say, oh, I made it over here, but just so you can expose the dance to a different audience.
Yeah.
You know, I always tell dancers or people, and they say, oh, I can never dance like this, or, you know, I can never do this. I say, yeah, but I can never reach the people you can reach. You know, so don't stop dancing. Don't think that you're less than. Do exactly what you're doing. Continue to learn and grow and be comfortable, because there are people in this area of the world, or this area of the country, or even people where I'm living, that there's no way I can affect them like you affect them when you dance. It doesn't matter how, you know, if I'm better, you're better, it doesn't matter. You have a specific style, energy, and an attraction to a certain group of people that I just cannot have. And so when you stop dancing, we lose those people. It doesn't mean that I go gain those people.
Right.
We lose them because you just stop dancing, or you stop, you know, showcasing whatever art you're doing, or you stop performing or doing whatever it is. We lose those people indefinitely almost.
Absolutely.
You know, so don't worry about, you know, trying to be like anybody else. Be yourself, you know, and think about the bigger picture of bringing more people and giving them that joy that you have when you dance, or when you first learned, or when, you know, you're just by yourself, just doing your art.
Just doing your thing.
Yeah.
No, that's that. You hit the nail on the head. That is literally, when I tell people about the origins of Mad Rhythms, I always talk about how, like, it was me bringing these kids with me, and people will be like, oh, Brill Barrett and the kids, or Brill Barrett and his dancers. And so that, to the point when I decided to name the company, I was like, I don't want my name attached to it, because I want this to grow into something that becomes something other than me.
Right.
And so, and even in the beginning, I'd be like, Mad Rhythms, and they'd be like, Brill Barrett and Mad Rhythms. I'm like, no, just Mad Rhythms, because I saw what it could become. And then eventually it became that.
Yeah.
And now, you know, 22 years in the game as a company, now I run into kids and they're like, are you a part of Mad Rhythms? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we just came from a festival not too long ago, and a little girl was like, do you know Star Dixon? And I was like, I do. That's my sister.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And so, like, it's no, like, for generations now, Mad Rhythms has carved a place that's not dependent on me.
Yeah, it's great.
And it just becomes more of a movement, because I think when anything's dependent on one person, then if that one person falters or fails, then the whole thing falters and fails.
Yeah.
And I want this legacy to live way beyond me. And even that is a not about me type thing.
Yeah.
Like succession and legacy are the words I talk about now in reference to where I want to see all this go.
Yeah.
So,
well, you doing it, brother. I'm telling you, you've been doing it for a while. Everybody
I appreciate you, man.
As soon as they say Mad Rhythms, you like, uh-oh, here we go. All right. Let me stretch.
And it's okay. So one of the things, and I was telling you this a little bit before we started recording, but you literally, like, this podcast, the Either And podcast, you literally are the either and. You know, with the hoofing, the Broadway, you're both. The in front of the camera or behind the scenes, you're also both. Because how many years has Be Heard been around now?
Do it right. Tap mics. Woo.
And it's funny, I know what it's called, but I just love Be Heard. Like, it sticks with me so well that I literally started calling your brand to Be Heard.
No, but that was the point. Be Heard. That was the point. Wow. I started 2016, 15, something like that. Yeah. So not too long ago.
I know I got 2 sets. I got one set where I had to go to Guitar Center and get the stuff to go with it.
Right.
And then the second set came in this nice little box with the picture on it. I'm like, he's stepping that game up. But of course, you as a tap dancer and needing to be heard, and the problems that we have in a myriad of situations with being heard and amplified, I'm sure informed you to create Do It Right tap mics. But was there ever a pull to just do that versus do this? Okay.
You know, things happen. And you know this, just to see how Mad Rhythms has grown, you know, just this podcast alone. You know, stuff just kind of happens.
Yeah.
And so I remember just being defeated after doing shows where the sound's not right. And so, in the Broadway shows, I'm like, well, shoot, they got these wireless mics, you know, they work great. Like, why can't everybody do that? And at the time, I would talk to the sound engineers. They're like, oh, yeah, so-and-so built them. And it would be the sound company that all the shows use. And the sound company. Yep. And these mics cost like $1,000 or even more, you know? And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, luckily I became friends with one of my sound engineers. And he said, I'm going to connect you with my buddy over there and see if he can give you a used pair.
Okay.
So I ended up buying a used pair for about $700-something bucks.
Wow. And
this is 2 lavalier Countryman microphones into one connector at the top. Very thin. And of course, you know, as you can imagine, doing a gig at Minton's up in Harlem, danced a little too hard. One of them came off, and I stepped on it, and
that was it. It's all she wrote.
$700 down the drain. And I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And so I just started talking to sound engineers from my shows, picking their brains about, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And then, you know, we found a way to, one, make it affordable for tap dancers and shows, and make it durable. Because I was like, you're using mics that are meant to go in your face for voice. Right. So, you know, inevitably something's going to happen. It's going to break or something. You know, you could try to be as delicate or as careful as you can. Something's going to happen. So, you know, at first it was just for myself. I just wanted something that I can use when I travel. And so, you know, we came up with something. I said, okay, great, perfect. And then people saw them, oh, where do you get those mics from? You know, because if you're not in the theater world, you don't know that they even exist.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, well, you know, I have my buddy make them. So I said, I'll hook you up. I'll, you know, get you a pair or whatever. And then people kept asking me. And I was like, okay, I need to make this into a thing.
Opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, so that's what happened. And I just, you know, work with my buddy. He builds them, you know, makes them strong. And, you know, I was like, tap dancers aren't sound people, you know, so we don't know how to handle microphones. So you need to make them in a way that if we accidentally tug on it and pull it, it's not going to just break.
Just pull apart.
And we don't have the luxury of having a sound engineer put the mics on for us all the time.
Yep.
So, and I said, sometimes we dance hard and literally the floor gets hot. The metal on the shoes gets hot. Your shoe gets hot. And if you don't put that mic on there right, it's going to come off. So I said, I need something where, you know, if it comes off and they, you know, dance on it, it's not going to break like right away. Right, you know, of course, if you keep beating on something, it's going to break.
It's going to break.
And so we put the metal casing around it and we just kept, you know, going back and forth trying to figure out things. And then, you know, here we are, you know, we got the mics and, you know, it's been good.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I got 2 pair. Proud owner.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
But I will also say, like you, when you came out with them, I was like, this is what so like your story, I toured in Riverdance.
Yeah, I know.
And you know, and then they had the top quality $5,000 mics,
right?
2 labs into 1 pack. Then I remember also we did with Derek, we did Imagine Tap, and maybe that budget wasn't quite as high as Riverdance. So then we had 2 packs.
Oh, wow.
With 1 lav coming down each leg. But, I mean, still same purpose, a little bit bulkier,
right?
You know, and heavier, but still same purpose. So, out of Riverdance, let me see the most delicate way I could say this. I accidentally brought some labs home with me when I left the show.
Yeah, I forgot to take them off.
And I went right to a sound guy, just like you, that I knew in Chicago. I was like, yo, can you build these?
Yes.
And he was like, well, no, I think I asked him if he could get some more or something like that. Because now I'm like, I need to get these for my company.
Yeah.
And so I went and he went and talked to people and then he came back. He said, you know, they custom built those for the show. Yeah. And I don't build mics.
Right.
And so I was defeated.
Yeah.
And then here you come.
Yeah.
With a very similar story of, of creating out of the necessity.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so the opportunity, I was like, yep, let's do it. He's doing what we need.
Right.
Which in Chicago is a lot of the same thing we do with our dance floors. Like we got the portable floors on lock to the point that sometimes we rent them out to other folks because we just got tired of being in those situations where they invite you to tap at a banquet and it's a ballroom and it's carpeted. And you're like, where did you think we were going to tap?
Right.
So necessity and also learning to take advantage of the opportunities. I think that's the improvisational aspect of what we do.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Up until about 4 or 5 years ago, the Apollo was doing the same thing. All their tap dancers had 2 different packs.
Yeah.
And I remember being up there, I think I was with Jason Samuels, and we were doing, it was some kind of benefit and a celebration with Debbie Allen. And I remember talking to the sound guy because, I said, Jason, I got you. I'm going to bring some mics for you. And so the sound guy was like, what's this? I was like, oh, well, these are my mics. And he was like, man, we've been using 2 packs for I don't know how long. He said, I'm tired of this, And he's like, one go out.
EQ,
He said, one go out, the other go out. Then I got to phase it. And Bobby's like, man, give me your card. And I was like, okay. And they've been using them ever since.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that about the 2 packs because my man was mad. He was like, when he saw me with that, he was like, what? He's like, man, where you been? So it was cool.
I was trying to think back to when we actually met for the first time.
Man, I don't know.
Because I feel like at first I thought it was Broadway Underground. And I was like, I knew DeWitt before then.
I honestly can't remember. I can't remember.
What years was Broadway Underground?
We had to start that around 2003.
Okay.
2002, somewhere in there. Maybe even before that.
Yeah, so...
What year was Imagine Tap?
2005.
Okay, so yeah, we had to start a couple years.
As a matter of fact, because we were in New York rehearsing.
Yeah.
When we all went to see
it.
Your show.
So it had to be so it's probably like 2003, 2002, somewhere in there.
Yeah. But I know we started connecting on tap festivals. We were teaching on a lot of the same festivals.
I remember when it was solidified. Like now, I remember meeting you, of course.
Right.
Now I can't remember when because we cross, whether it be Tap City or the Tap Extravaganza or something at Town Hall. You know, it's just so many things happen. So I don't know. But when I first came to Chicago to see Imagine Tap, that's when I feel like the brotherhood, formed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because it was just the welcoming, the welcoming. The pride you have for your city, same pride I got for Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
The pride and the responsibility to your community and your people. Same thing, I've been brought up with and I cherish, and we got to connect on that level when I came here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this brother's the real deal. Because I knew you before. Of course, we know each other, but we never had a chance to connect like that. And so after that, man, I was like, okay, look, Brill, that's my brother forever,
Yeah, and then we ended up on the DC Tap Fest together.
DC Tap
and we started
Fest.
hanging and just talking, and it was that's where the brotherhood was bound.
Right.
It was formed and then it was bound.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so, man, like I say, I'm proud to see all the work that you've been doing, brother, over the years.
Same. Seriously, same.
What's next for the show?
Well, unofficially.
What can you say?
Yeah, our plan is to go to Broadway, of course. But I can't say anything officially.
Right.
I don't think anybody can. But that's the plan, to take this show to Broadway and really get it out there, the story of Louis Armstrong. And some of these great characters in the show.
Oh yeah, I think the story needs to be out there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say this: by the time this podcast airs, the show will be on Broadway.
Come on, let's go.
Now I'm not connected with the show, so what I say doesn't mean anything officially.
Just putting it out there,
but I'm putting it out into the universe because I believe it has the makings of everything I've ever seen on Broadway, and I think again, Louis Armstrong, that story needs to be told.
Right.
But I also love that your character, Lincoln Perry, only has a short piece in the whole thing, but it leaves a lasting impression.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
So
it's a fun scene.
Yeah.
It's a really fun scene. Yeah.
So I just I just need somebody to make sure my tickets are put aside.
Oh, come
on
on,
Broadway.
I got you.
For the opening night, I'm like, yeah, I said that.
Right, exactly.
But I will say I want to bring this up too because it just happened. So we just had a community class, workshop, discussion. I don't even call it any of those things in particular. It was a community connection event.
Yeah,
I'd like to say, with you and your wife and one other cast member.
Yeah.
And so real quick, can you touch on the three of them individually? The three of y'all, you of course, the three individually, and I don't know. I felt like there was what I loved is you reached out to me, like we've been talking about doing some community stuff. So we connected and we made this thing happen quickly. And I feel like it's only because it was important to you all.
Absolutely.
And and sometimes people do community stuff for the PR of it all.
Right.
And you're like, oh, it didn't happen because yada, yada, yada.
Right.
But I felt like it was important. Y'all showed up.
Absolutely.
And I feel like every word that was spoken to the people in that room was something that's going to resonate with them for the rest of their lives. So I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone else that came. But can you quickly talk about the three of you all as you all were for that workshop?
Yeah, so Jenny Hardy Fleming, that's my wife, and she plays Little Heart in the musical, and Aurelia.
You got to roll them R's now.
Aurelia Michael Holmgren, and she is our associate choreographer, and she's also a swing in the show. We all come from humble beginnings, and we are a result of community. We're a result of someone like you, pulling us in and loving on us and giving us history and giving us integrity and pride and all that stuff. And I told them, I said, listen, everything we come from, everything, why we are the way we are, Brill is doing this in Chicago. He's doing this over here at Mad Rhythms, for Mad Rhythms and whoever comes through these doors or whoever you meet out in the street, And so I told our PR team, I said, I want to do something with them. I told them before we got here, I sent them, your name and the company, and I said, I want to do something with them because they are doing amazing work in Chicago. And if there's anybody we should reach out to, it's him.
I appreciate
and so,
that.
Of course, because it's just important. It's important for, these younger people and older people, to be honest, to see it work, to see it people that are normal, to see that, you don't have to be some special way to be in a certain position or get certain things, you can be yourself and be as successful as you want to be, so it's important always to come back and say, no, I'm like y'all. I ain't no different.
Yeah.
So and I think all of us, it was important for us to do that. Just to see, I always love watching y'all perform, man. Cause it's it's different. It's different. It's not like just like trying to like show you something. There's a moment where you watch Mad Rhythms and you like, man, they getting down and y'all are having a good time. And then all of a sudden, it's like this portal opens up, you know what I mean? And it's like y'all in your own world. And then we're sitting and it's like you're just watching. Like you're thankful to be in the presence of what's happening. Because the energy is just so, oh man, it's infectious. It's like, it's literally like you stepped into a different world and you're just watching people in their element. It's wonderful. So I'm glad that they got to see that because I've been telling my wife about y'all for a long time. So I'm glad she got to see y'all in person.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a fun event. I had a great time.
Yeah,
I'm glad we were able to do it. And
me too.
And I know the young people, especially we had some other community organizations that participated.
Yeah.
And Move Me Soul. There was two young ladies that came with the Diana Muhammad, the director of Move Me Soul.
Right.
And one was a singer, and then one was an actress. And them babies had butterflies in their stomachs, but
they did it.
They did it.
They did it.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah.
You know, to just get up in front of people you don't know. You know, and just, especially at that age, you know, and I credit that again to you because you've created this environment. I think if we were anywhere else, I don't know we would have had those same results. But I feel like they probably know that when they walk into this building, when they walk into this space, it's a safe space.
Yeah. And
anybody you bring in is going to be safe. It's not going to be, you know, anybody that they might be fearful of. So I was really floored at the fact that they just got up there and did it like that, you know. And I said, "Well, that's Brill, man." So you know, it was.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And again, I know that they're gonna leave with that knowledge because I even loved we had this great plan. You know, they say if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right.
We had this great plan of, you know, y'all are going to sit here and then they're going to talk. By the time we ended, you were in a chair over here and your wife was sitting next to the people in the audience and then Aurelia was over there.
Right.
And it just turned into this exchange of information and talent and y'all became, in that moment, y'all became the resource. And, you know, for me, a lot of our young folks, especially in Black and brown communities or poor, I don't even like poor, underserved.
Right, underserved.
Or under-resourced communities, that's the key word. We don't have access to the resources.
Absolutely.
So y'all came here and y'all became the resource for so many young people. And I just hats off to you. That's a beautiful thing. I don't have a hat on, but if I did, you know, hats off. I think that was just a beautiful thing. And just keep doing that. I hope y'all do that because, you know, after Broadway then comes a tour. So then everywhere y'all go, y'all are going to do those community connection events in every place because I think y'all are a wealth of knowledge. And again, y'all show that getting to where you are right now is possible.
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely. Some people don't believe that representation matters. I'm a firm believer.
Yeah.
That representation matters.
Absolutely. It definitely matters. It definitely matters. And you know, it's you know, it's Broadway is a outlet. Like I said, it's a medium, it's an outlet. It's not the end goal. It's not, you know, the end all be all. It's not, you know, it's a great outlet, it's a great medium. But, you know, we are looking at that stuff as stepping stones for other things. You know, like for me, again, it's a platform to really get this dance, you know, out into that medium more than it already is, and in certain styles and ways, you know, that it's not represented. You know?
Absolutely.
So, you know, your goals are different. You know, it's not like you never feel like, oh, this is the arrival place. Like, no, this is a way to get other things and find yourself in other positions and be able to help other people, you know? Yeah. To
be able to connect and pull other folks up. Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Because that's the only way, like I said, I want to get to a point where nobody thinks tap is a dying art form. Like a lot of people don't anymore, but some people still do. Yeah. And then so, I mean, to the point that Tristan Bruins, one of our Mad Rhythms family members, started a podcast called Gasp of a Dying Art Form.
That is
like
funny.
And you know, and some people didn't get it, and he was like, "Oh, it's tongue in cheek." People are always saying this art form is dying,
right?
So now the art form is going to start talking to you on its dying, and he's doing a lot of research and wonderful things.
Oh, that's great.
And his podcast is also part of the Mad Rhythms Podcast Network.
Oh,
so
great.
Listen to it on all any channels that you listen to your favorite podcast.
Oh.
But he's dug a lot into history, and I love hearing him and I just think for the next generation, their resources are us.
Yeah.
And so as much as we can through the on the stage, through the Do It Right tap mics, through the podcast, through the performances, as much as we can give them about this art form, so that they can then elevate it to wherever they're going to take it.
Right.
I think it's why we're here.
Yes, that history, where it come from, you know, all that stuff. Yeah.
And I think another either and of it all is because we're so much into history. Like myself, I talk a lot about what Black people went through for this art form.
Absolutely.
And some people, especially in today's political climate,
right?
Some people take that to mean that I don't feel some people should be doing it or any of this crazy stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I love it. And I just want you to make sure you understand what people went through so that you could have it.
Absolutely.
And so, and I feel like that's another way you are the either and. Like, again, you're in front of all kind of crowds. You deal and talk with all kind of people. And one thing doesn't mean the other.
Right. Right.
You know, so when you think about the history of tap, what do you think most before Lincoln Perry?
Okay.
What who of those that came before us, the Dancestors, if you will,
right,
do you think you gained the most knowledge from or connections with?
Oh man. Ooh, that's a tough question right there. You know, to be honest, there's other than, you know, the likes of Master Juba, there's not a lot of recorded names that I'm too familiar with. And also I don't have any information to be able to even see how they dance or hear anything from what they said for me to really to have a connection with anybody in particular. I mean, because you're talking about late 1800s, you're talking about, you know, early 1900s. I mean, it wasn't even called tap, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and so it's I that's a hard question. I don't know, because I can't I can't think of anybody right now. I mean, just because of the way that stuff wasn't recorded, wasn't written down. People's names, like you said, weren't their actual names, and even if it was, it probably changed when they moved somewhere else. You know, just the nature of Black people in this country and what we had to do to survive.
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
Maybe don't go back that far. Maybe just to the current, like the last of the hoofers that were with us.
Okay.
In our lifetimes. You quoted Slide earlier. Dr. Jimmy Slide.
Oh yeah,
and
Slide.
I mean, he was a mentor to a lot of us.
Absolutely. I think the people that influenced me the most was Bilbo Jenkins Robinson. Of course, Gregory Hines, a huge influence. And Bunny Briggs. Those are probably my top three that have influenced me. And now recently, Buddy Bradley. I've been doing a lot of research on him.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, this guy is amazing.
Yeah, and he went over to the UK and did the same
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Well, you know, what's interesting about him, and I love to bring him up in the presence of the ballet world. When they start to, like, you know, say anything about tap, I say, go look up Buddy Bradley. Oh, by the way, he was a tap dancer, and he, I think, saved your art form. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's, you know, you know, he did what Charlie Atkins did for Motown.
Exactly.
For ballet. You know, it's crazy. And Broadway.
Yeah.
You know, it's so he's so fascinating. And there's a lady writing a book about him, and I can't wait till it comes out, because I got a chance to sit down and talk to her. And she's been traveling all over talking to his family members and people that knew him and people that worked with him. And
is this Annette Walker?
No, this is oh shoot, what is her name? Doreen? Oh, I can't remember her name. I don't want to mess it up, so I can't remember.
That's okay. I only mentioned Annette because Annette Walker, who's a tap dancer out of the UK, has been doing a lot. She's been doing like symposiums on Buddy Bradley and Zoom workshops and informationals, because again, he's one of those names that you don't hear a lot.
Don't hear about.
Don't hear a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Bugsby Berkeley would not be who he is if it wasn't for Buddy Bradley. You know, I mean, a lot of these Broadway shows wouldn't be what they are. Tap and dance in general, you know, wouldn't be what it is. Some of these movie musical, you know, stars that we know that move so well and that, you know, tap so well was accredited to him. And what, you know, he was the choreographer for the Stars. You know, that's what they called him. You know, but he brought the culture to the arts, which is crazy. To even say that, to even, like, you don't bring culture to the arts. The, you know, culture, the arts come out of culture. You know, why would you have to do that? But we talking about that,
Yeah.
anyway. So, but yeah, so he's fascinating,
And that's cool. And I like that pretty much all of those tap dancers that you are most connected to are also the ones who had the Broadway or the multifaceted careers as tap dancers.
Yeah.
All had some stint on Broadway.
Right.
Movies, television. So that means movies and television are next for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've done a little bit. But yeah, I am trying to be thankful for my blessings and see what's the word? To let things happen the way they're supposed to happen, and see opportunities and seize them, but not shy away from a blessing or the direction you're being pushed in at the moment. Because I've seen a lot of friends do that, and I've learned from them. Like I would see friends get like big gigs on Broadway and big gigs on movies or whatever. And then because in their mind, this was something that they always wanted to do, like something like they're not doing at that time, they completely leave whatever they're being successful in to do what they always wanted to do. And it just wasn't the right time. And then they try to come back to where they was making the money and being successful, and then that door has been closed. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. I want to live in this moment and see what it is, see what it means, and be strategic about how this is going to propel me to the next level. So yes. But it's like, how do you be strategic about that?
No, and that's true. That's true. Especially because you got two little
kids,
mouths to feed.
Right.
Yeah, so your decisions affect many.
Exactly.
Versus where it's, when you're younger, it's just, I just want to do this, and what happens.
Yeah.
So,
but, like you, you always kind of think that way. You have to.
Yeah.
That even when you don't have kids, even if you don't have a spouse, or, don't have a lot of family, your decisions affect many.
Exactly.
And so you always like to think that way because it gives you a different perspective about the decisions you make, why you make them, And now people tell you, social media, people will come and tell you immediately. They will send you messages. And if that don't wake you up, you're like, oh, so this post wasn't just a fun, like, hey, I'm going to just post. Like, no, this actually affected people. And so what am I going to do with that? Knowing that what I do, what I say, what I put out affects people. And that could be in a positive or a negative way.
Yeah. I will tell you, the decisions you make affecting others and understanding. So it's funny, you get to a position where sometimes you may question. Right? I'm sure we all do.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that every time I've gotten into those positions myself where I start questioning, like, did I really put my own type career on hold? Like, am I ever going to, and like, maybe I should start back focusing on myself. Like, Mad Rhythms is now doing it.
Right.
Things will happen that let me know, just stay on the path you're on. Case in point, The Big Leap.
Yeah.
The TV show.
Yeah.
I got called to interview. So one, I was like, that's a special thing.
Yeah.
But I ain't been in the acting world since like I was in my 20s. So I was like, a TV show?
Yeah.
And I didn't know, but the connections were made through people that, I was connected to out here in the dance world. But it's so funny when I got the show, I didn't even know. This is how fate lined this up for me. I thought it was just for a one episode appearance.
Yeah.
So I go to the fitting. Well, first of all, the fitting is in the same building where I'm teaching this summer camp. They have this summer camp at the TV studios and movie studios. So on the day that I get a fitting, I'm like, well, I don't want to cancel with these kids.
Right.
They're important. And then I look at the address. I'm like, it's the same place. And I'm like, can y'all just move me down 30 minutes? Because, my class ends and I can just run over. And so that was like, how crazy is that? So then I get there, I do the fitting, and they're like, they asked me to bring some stuff, see what my style is, what I like, yada, yada, yada. So I bring some stuff, and the lady's like, okay, cool. We're going to build your wardrobe out. And I was like, for one episode?
Right.
She was like, no, they don't build wardrobe. That means you're gonna be a part of the cast.
Yeah.
And I was like, she said that's usually what that means. Now it might mean something different.
Right.
But we got instructions to build a wardrobe out for you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I went, and it's funny, I went back to the kids and I was like, I think I'm about to be on a TV show and I think I'm going to be a regular cast member. But all of this was still unsure because I wasn't thinking, now's my chance to leave this and go do this.
Right.
I was trying to see what this means and how it's going to affect what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And so Donetta had been on the episode, Donetta Little Bit Jackson.
Yeah.
Had been on was a part of the pilot.
Yeah.
So she had already been filming and done stuff with them. And so she used to complain. Like I was like, Donetta, why are you not confirming your rehearsal? And she was like, because I don't know. Like until the call sheet comes out, I don't know. And I didn't even understand that. And I was like, Donetta, you can't confirm until the day of. She was like, look, the call sheet comes out. So we always had this back and forth. She had already done the pilot. So now it got picked up and they're going to do the season. So I get on there. So I go and now I'm like, so I'm scrambling for subs because I get a schedule handed to me on Monday that involves all my class times and all that stuff. So I say all that to say, now I'm on a TV show and now I'm starting to feel like I think I had imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't belong here. Like I do this thing. I used to act, but like, how am I relevant today until Chris, what's Chris' last name? How did I just blow bleak on his last name? The choreographer. He's a tap dancer as well. He did the LX. Do you remember League of Extraordinary Dancers? It was like a
I do.
series.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And he did that whole thing. That was his concept. But whenever they had tap dancing, he was the one that did the tap dance.
Okay.
And so I knew when I saw his name on the sheet, I was like, I know that name.
Yeah.
And so he came in and he was like, man, it's a pleasure to meet you. I love what you do for your community. I wanted you to be a part of this project.
Yes.
I was like, so the community stuff I'm doing opened the door to this project.
Yeah.
And the whole time, we was on set, he would always say, like, he was like, I'm going to make sure, I want you here because I know the representation of the dance is important to you. So I'm never going to ask you to do anything that's crazy or stupid or demeaning or like, because of the character he knew that I held for my community work is also how he approached me as a dancer on set, which I thought was very cool. Now I did end up in a swan costume at one point, but it was for, our adaptation of Swan Lake. So at least, that was a purpose behind it. But I say all that to say, doing what I do and being committed to it, but not letting go of my dreams allowed me to kind of do that and come back. And the whole time I was going, I was missing all the rehearsals. So I had to then make sure that, like, Star, you're the assistant director.
Right.
I need you to run this. Donetta, Donetta was the rehearsal director, but Donetta was also on set.
Right.
So Star pretty much took the company into her hands and ran it fully. And then I did what I could. So creating a network, creating a legacy system is also what helped me. So I love knowing that. And, I think it's the same for you, bro.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
So we going to keep doing it and pushing and pressing. I don't know, any words of wisdom you want to share with those who might listen to this podcast?
Oh, man.
About anything.
About anything.
Life, dance, juggling, family, like anything.
Right. Be yourself. There is a place for you. There is work for you. And a difference of opinion should be wanted because that's how you grow. You
exactly.
should, and we all can exist, with different opinions and different ways of doing things. It's we live in a time where we get upset if someone thinks differently or does something differently, and we get so emotional about it. And I think it's a beautiful thing. If we all did the same thing, this would be a boring place.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I hope you can, I guess, open your heart and your mind to allowing people to exist in your space that think differently and maybe act differently than you, and find the joy in it. Find that balance in the community of it all. Because we all humans at the end of the day.
That's true.
We all go to the bathroom. We all got to eat. We all got to sleep. So
yeah.
I think that's a big thing that the world needs now.
Well, I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this episode of the Either And podcast. I'm your host, Brill Barrett. This has been a conversation with my brother in the rhythm, DeWitt Fleming.
Yes, sir.
And right now he's here in Chicago doing A Wonderful World. Great show about the life of Louis Armstrong. So once it comes to you, wherever you are, you best go see it. That's all I'm going to say. And with that, we out this piece.
My man.
Be heard.